nhớ trong ý chung thì cái tên mình trả mong chúa lên thiết số từ đồng xuyên đầu nu nọ cụ tàu tất cả mua sẽ hở tuần chi này nu nọ hiện những nguồn trình kiến hàng cụ cho ý từ cử lý cho nguồn nữ lò mù hay trong flow nguồn hiện từ thanh niên phun va bón thâu đâu cho nguồn trong đây nó nữ tất cả tàu trâu thầu xong ốp hạ xa thầu lúc trâu thì tu mình thi flow nữa lò trong nó lò lumika là nguồn civil case on appeal lấy đó trong nó do trong flow cũ tới chỉ lấy đó mù appeal là tất cả mua hay chú mù trâu hậu sản share là sản lo ít việc của cái từ cứ lý cho là từ attorney nữ là kia còn đâu chăn nó bút này sẽ tới chỉ lúc nào từ attorney nữ lúc bây hoa Hmong Frank của cái thọ chỉ là nên họ của cái hay equal lu Hmong equal lu America như là nên sát lý cả. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hmong Report. With me here today is attorney Hmong Frank. Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And I have already apologized that we will be speaking Hmong and English. Though I call it Hmonglish, it's not the term. So we will be speaking real Hmong and real English. So welcome for spend your time with us tonight. We asked quite a few questions about the case that you are handling right now. So why don't you start telling us a little bit about yourself, how you get involved into this case, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. I am a civil lawyer, which means I'm a lawyer not for the government, but for private parties doing lawsuit. Some time ago, I did a completely unrelated Hmong case involving a funeral program. That got me into the Hmong world. It was just a case that came in the door, so to speak. I'm a private lawyer. I did that case. I did another Hmong case after that on behalf of a Hmong doctor. And so I just kind of got in the Hmong community. And then I heard it was quite a famous case, the criminal case. There were big news articles about it. I mean, it was something I read on the front page of the Sacramento Bee. And then somehow, I forgot exactly how, but I was connected up after the case ended with Nia Vang, and he and I talked. And we got the idea. My background as a lawyer has included civil rights lawsuits and lawsuits against the government, which is its own little specialized area. A lot of people don't want to sue the government because it's a hard thing to do. It's hard to win, but they can be won. That has been my experience. So I decided to investigate whether we had any kind of civil recourse after they won the criminal case to do a civil lawsuit, which we call malicious prosecution, but we have to put it, to get it into federal court, into a kind of a different name. But roughly speaking, it means when you bring a case against somebody and you know it is a false case. It's kind of a knowingly false case. And they call it without probable cause and malicious, which means you do it with the intent to injure somebody. So that was basically the case that we filed.
Okay, now because we have quite a few questions to ask you today, kind of important. Now, what specifically this case involving and whom is your clients that you are representing?
Well, we have of all the people that were brought to court in what I call the first case, which is the criminal case.
Sure.
And I'd like to clarify, I was not involved in the criminal case.
Okay. And let's clarify, the original case is between the United States and Harrison Jack or Jeremy Powell and the other defendants, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Some of those defendants came forward to do the civil case.
Okay.
Some of them did not. It was kind of a decision that was made. Some said yes, some said no. And so we brought together a kind of a subgroup of them, but also in that subgroup, we brought their wives. So we have the people that spent about over 4 months in jail while the case was pending, and then it got dismissed and they got out of jail. And I also allege that not only did they suffer, but their wives suffered as well, because the wives kind of lost their husbands for that period.
Can you tell us who are they?
I have their names right here. Yeah. It is Nia Cao Vang. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce these right. Chao Zhang.
Okay.
David Vang, Chang Yang, Chu Hui Vang, and Pang He.
Okay. Well, So in Hmong would be Nye Câu Va and Chao Zhong, and then David Vang and Chong Yang and Chu Hu Vang and Pang Her.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
And these are the people bringing the case. The people we sued are Stephen Decker. He is the involved agent with alcohol, tobacco, firearms, explosives.
Okay.
B.T. Todd Jones is the director of ATFE, and the United States of America. They are the defendants.
Okay. So can you tell us about the history of oppression, slaughter, and other mistreatment of the Hmong people in Laos and the connection to the lawsuit that you're involving right now?
Well, what I learned, and I have to first tell you, as a kind of like an American, most of us Americans, we don't know anything about Hmong. Like Hmong what? We don't know who they are, where they're from, what they do, what their culture is, their religion, their thinking, anything. So as a lawyer, just really accidentally get into representing Hmong people, and I learned about what happened in this case. I learned something that I was quite shocked, that there's a practice in Laos where it is legal basically to kill a Hmong person. You can walk right up to them and shoot them. And from what I've learned, there are quite a few examples of people getting killed, or also they are raping women, and they're also torturing people. That relates to my case because the ATF agent, Decker, came to the people, the Hmong individuals, and said, you know there's a big problem in Laos. You know they're killing your brothers and sisters. We want you to help us do a kind of war over there to stop all that. There was a connection in that the proposal was by the U.S. government to have the Hmong people bring about a kind of military solution to the problem of murdering Hmong people all the time in Laos.
Okay.
So there's a to me, the first issue really is that one. Because that issue right there, which I understand is still going on, that was the whole theory of like, let's fix that problem. And one of the things that unfortunately could be missed in the case, since the criminal case is over, they dismissed my civil case, the problem in Laos still goes on. Those people are killing Hmong people, murdering Hmong people, raping Hmong people, torturing Hmong people. And I've heard rumor that there are government-sanctioned rewards, like you get paid money if you can prove it. It reminds me of how we used to do with Native Americans. If you would get paid for a scalp. It was legal to kill. It's like a weird.
You get a reward for it.
You get a reward. And I don't know exactly the proof on this. I haven't gone over there. I haven't investigated it. But from what I understand, this is a real practice. It's a form, really, of a kind of genocide, where the Laotian government, for whatever reason, wants to eliminate all Hmong people from Laos.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit on this case. So this civil case that you are involving with starts in 2012?
We filed it, yeah, thank you. I was looking at the dates. May 2012 is when we filed it. And what happens in a civil process, the plaintiff or the people bringing the case hire a lawyer, that's me, and we prepare a charging document which is called a complaint. And in the complaint, we alleged that the criminal case that was brought violated certain constitutional rights. And we allege it as a Federal Civil Rights Act case and something called a Bivens action. It's based on a case called Bivens, which basically allows you to sue the federal government for violation of the Constitution.
I see.
We also alleged a group of what are called sort of common law state law claims, the main of which is malicious prosecution. We filed that case. We had to serve Mr. Decker, which I did myself. It was very interesting how that happened, because he's a roving agent with no location. And trying to serve that guy, he's undercover. So I ended up giving it to someone who gave it to someone who gave it to him, and it then went to the Department of Justice, and then they accepted it. So we got him in the case. So Mr. Decker was deemed served, even though I could never find him. I kind of said, how can I find him?
And with that, you have a coming up court date on the 14th, which in San Francisco, and you started in Sacramento. Can you tell why the case is now moved to San Francisco instead of remaining in the courthouse? They do have federal court in Sacramento, aren't they?
We filed it in federal court in Sacramento. It's called, the name of the court is United States District Court for the Eastern District of California. So that's a federal court. And that's the same court where the criminal case was brought. Same place, okay? And it's kind of a nice karma circle there, okay? So in the U.S. Attorney's Office is right in that building. So they're dealing with the case. So they dealt with, all this stuff. The federal judge on my civil case dismissed it. What happened were the defendants, Mr. Decker and the USA, they filed a kind of motion called motion to dismiss. And in the
the motion asked to dismiss the whole original case.
Same idea.
Same idea.
Same idea. One of them is in a criminal case, the other one's in a civil case, but it's the same idea. So they filed on the grounds primarily that the criminal case did not result in a finding that the defendants in the criminal case were what's called factually innocent. So the standard that they say I have to show is a finding of factual innocence. And the problem is they are factually innocent, but they never were allowed their day in court because the judge dismissed the case. So you don't, if the judge had let the case go to trial and the U.S. attorney let it go to trial, they could have then proven their factual innocence. But I want to hopefully get the judges to agree on appeal that it is this case right now where they can prove their factual innocence. Let them do that. You want to prove that we're factually innocent? Let us do that, because that chance was taken away from them. Once the case was dismissed, we appealed it. The appellate court is in San Francisco. And it's called the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. That's located in San Francisco.
Okay, and that's why you are going down there on the 14th.
What happened was we file an appeal, you file an opening brief, and that's the document I have here. This is our brief on appeal. The defendants get to file their brief. We file a reply brief, and then the court sets it for hearing.
Okay.
And that's what we have this week. At long last, this has been going, we've been waiting a long time. So it's now our turn in court.
That's good. That's good for your client, of course. And perhaps we'll have a day in court, at least with a hearing.
Well, I'd like to point out in the criminal case, they didn't really get their day in court. They filed a motion to dismiss. The criminal judge agreed and dismissed about half the case, not all of it. Then the criminal judge, the judge on the criminal case, the rest of the case would have gone forward. And then they could have proven their innocence. But the U.S. attorney on it, on their own act, filed a motion to dismiss. And what they said, it's a very small motion. It's like a 2-page document. It just says, in the interest of justice.
In the interest of justice.
That's it. And it doesn't say, because we think they are factually innocent, which of course they wouldn't.
They wouldn't say that.
I would not expect them to ever say that. So that motion was granted. Of course, the defendants in that case wouldn't oppose it, because the rest of the case will be dismissed. Yes, we want that. Once that was done, everyone gets to get out of jail.
Go home.
So they didn't get their day in court because it was dismissed. In my civil case, at the first level in district court in Sacramento, they never got their day in court because it was dismissed. It's kind of what we call a catch-22, where you can't achieve what they need you to achieve because what they want is a determination of factual innocence. And on appeal, actually, will be the first time we're actually able to say that in court. So really, the 14th is our first day in court on all of this stuff, in a way.
Okay.
It's the first time.
You have answered quite a few questions that I have in mind, but into that very, very question, I think a lot of Hmong around the world did not know that the case was dismissed, not because of the attorney from all of the defendants at the original case, but also filed by the attorney, the United States attorney, which is Attorney General Office, is it correct, or Department of Justice?
Department of Justice, Attorney General. Also, they had a special. There was a special attorney on it. This was considered like.
So they filed a motion to dismiss the case.
Yeah.
Okay. So both end basically that asked to dismiss for the best interest of.
The attorneys representing the defendants in the criminal case filed a motion to dismiss. Approximately the whole case, and approximately half was dismissed. And they did a wonderful job on the motion, and they got most of it was gone. It kind of gutted the United States case. And then after that, the United States attorney, the lawyers representing the U.S. government, they filed their own motion to dismiss the rest. Yeah. And it's an amazing story right there, because it's kind of like, if you can imagine making this kind of big case, you are illegally waging a war on Laos. That's kind of the case, all right? And then to say, never mind.
Forget it.
Sorry, we got it all wrong. And they're not really saying they got it wrong, but for them to walk away from that, I mean, if they truly thought they were guilty of that, they would not have walked away from it.
Sure.
I mean, they couldn't have.
Now, with that said, what did the judge on the original case say about the dismissing of?
What he had to do, first of all, the dismissal was of what's called the indictment, which is the criminal complaint. Like I just told you, in a civil case, I file something called a complaint. In the federal matter, they call it an indictment. And it's basically a charging document. It says, we accuse you of doing the following. The judge looked at what was alleged and found that there was no military enterprise, which is kind of a collection of people. Like when you think military, you think people in a uniform, organized, disciplined, and even, sometimes the definition is getting odd, because you can have people that don't have a uniform, and yet they're acting together. The judge found that there was no allegation of an actual military enterprise.
Therefore,
he agreed with that. And what I have tried to convince the court and the Court of Appeals is that I should point out the indictment was amended one time already. So there was what's called a superseding indictment. They know the law on this, the government. They know what they got to put in there. It wasn't like the judge came up with a ruling that, oh my God, we didn't know that. We didn't know we needed that in there. There is a procedure in court. If the judge says, you need to say something, and you didn't say it, you can ask the judge, oh, sorry, let me say it, and I will say it, and I have facts to back it up, and the judge will let you do it. Rare will be the day when a judge says no to that. They didn't ask to do it. They didn't ask to do it because there was no military enterprise. It just wasn't there. And it's kind of like, that's it. There isn't one. That's simple. That's why I'm claiming they are factually innocent. Once you get rid of that, there's no case.
There's nothing else.
Yeah, that was my idea. Okay. But so far we're not winning. That is a problem. So
okay. What do you expect the outcome of the civil case that you are involving right now?
What I'm hoping the Court of Appeals will do is let them have their day in court. You want them to show factual innocence? No problem. Give us a trial, and we will show factual innocence. That's what I'm asking for. Okay. Let us present our case to a jury. And every one of them, each of my clients, they have a different story about how they were brought to this case. So that it's not all the same. Each one is making a movie, was making a documentary, and they found him. And it's kind of like they came to him, they came to the Hmong people as the U.S. government, not as a non-government person. It's kind of like a defense to this case is, if the U.S. government comes to you and says, we want to do a war, please help us, or we're in a war, please help us. Well, we all know this is the history of the Hmong people. The CIA asked exactly that during the Vietnam War. And the Hmong people said yes. And I might add, they said yes to an amazing, a very bad proposal. Go into that jungle and kill dangerous people. For what? And if I were the Hmong, I'm amazed the Hmong people said yes. I got to tell you, what do they owe USA? Nothing, right? But they said yes, and they did it.
That was start of the whole thing.
Well, when the federal government comes to the Hmong people and says, "Will you fight a war for us?" See, if the federal government came to me, I would say, "Oh, get real. I don't know anything about being a soldier, about military operation. Why are you asking me?" When they come to the Hmong people, they take it seriously because they did it before. There's a history. When they came to them, they didn't come undercover. I am not with the government. I'm just some rogue guy, but I want to start a war and I'll bankroll you. That's not how it came. It came forward as, I'm with the U.S. government. It's like that sign, Uncle Sam wants you. This guy said, we want you again. And they were thinking, well, hey, we're here for you. What is it you want us to do?
Right. But judging on, I know you said you didn't involve in the original case, but judging from the information and research you have done into the original case and the detail that you know about it, what do you think about the credibility of the original case, the defendant of the original case, their credibility of actually forming a military, force to take over Laos?
Here's the way I'd look at it. First of all, forget it. No way. I mean, I think you would need $50 million. Do you know if you ever read budget reports on like what we spend a month in Iraq or Afghanistan, you need such a large amount of money. The people that were doing this, these are small business owners. One of the guys was a police officer. I mean, these are not rich people. They don't have 20 million, 30 million, 50 million to go wage a war. So it was really impossible. But beyond that, they would never wage a war if our U.S. government didn't come to them. I mean, that would just not be on their agenda. Their idea is they would like generally, and they still would like, to solve that problem. How can we solve that problem?
And the problem has to do with the Hmong still hide in the jungle.
I call it the atrocities in Laos.
The atrocities in Laos.
That's my generalization for it. And when you think about how can we solve that problem, nobody would put on the list, let's start a war against Laos. I mean, it's an incredible, I mean, you'd have to be weird, so no.
The reason I want to ask you that question to relate to is that a lot of Hmong could not believe, looking at the numbers that being arrested for the first case, is that they will have the ability or credibility to form such a force to take over a country like Laos. That's why the question came up and say, if something come up, maybe I should ask, but that's why I'm asking you.
I think it would be the same odds as forming a team to go to Mars. Okay? It's the same odd, like, oh, really?
Sure.
Yeah, forget about it. I mean, no way. Impossible.
Okay. Now, let's go to another question I'd like to ask you is that now that you bring a civil case representing, three individuals of the defendant and their spouse or their wife, why not all of the defendant agree to file like a lawsuit, like in the same lawsuit? It will be more powerful that way, isn't it?
It would have been my desire to do so, and I would certainly like to have the general as a party. I tried to get everybody, and the concept that some of them had, speaking through their attorneys, was, look, we got dismissed from the criminal case. leave it alone. If you file the civil case, you're opening it up. And if you open it up, it may come back. There's a risk. And you know what? I don't deny that. There is a risk. And my clients needed to be brave to say, you know what? That's a risk, yes, but we're going to do it anyway.
And they feel very strong about their case, of course, right?
Yeah, they were not afraid to give it a green light. Not only, by the way, not only the men, but the wives, because they're in it too.
So that brings to the next question. I know you touched a little bit at the beginning. So what is the main allegation of the plaintiff that you filed?
The main allegation is that what was hidden, it was a false case. That's the main allegation. That the criminal case was a false case. It was based on a lie. And the biggest lie of all was that when Stephen Decker came to these people and told them, I'm with the federal government, we want your help, that fact was never presented in evidence. In other words, everything's taped, everything's videotaped, there's all kinds of videos, but that part is not in it. That's off it. So once you push that to the side, what you see is a bunch of guys, sitting in a room where there are missiles and things. Okay.
And who brought them the missile?
Mr. Decker.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and his group. So, but what you don't see is, hi, I'm Mr. Decker, I'm with the U.S. government, and we want your help. That part was deliberately excluded from all evidence. It wasn't mentioned by the government. You would never know about it. And that, if true, is a total defense, because if the federal government comes to you and says, we want you to do a war for us, then you didn't violate that statute. You're innocent. You are factually innocent.
Otherwise, General Vang Pao would have violated from the very beginning of the Hmong involved in the United States, even though then he wasn't a United States citizen.
You're right, but if for the general to get involved in this, he was the one the CIA came to before.
Right.
He was the one. I remember I went to his funeral down in Fresno, and a 7-day event. I was there for one of them. I saw the photos, and it's an amazing museum of him. I was very impressed. Again, like a typical American, I don't know a lot about the Hmong people. When I saw all that they did, I was shocked and amazed and impressed. And I'm thinking, there's no way General Val would, after all that beautiful military career of helping the U.S. government, would then somehow betray the U.S. government. He would not betray them. I was sure of it. And the Hmong people I know, they just wouldn't do it.
Well, from what I know, there was no way the Hmong would do that. Especially the Hmong who live in the United States. Why would they do that to their own parents?
Right.
To give an example. But my next question to you is, now that you file the lawsuit, what did the court say about the lawsuit that you filed on behalf of the three of them and their spouse?
The court said we do not have a case and dismissed it. And that's why we've appealed it. And what the court said is we must show that the criminal case ended in a manner that shows factual innocence. Not just that you won, but that you were innocent. And this is why I describe it as a catch-22, which catch-22, is a slang.
It's a slang,
it's where
I understand.
You can't really, it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem. How do I prove my factual innocence if you dismiss the criminal case and I never get a trial? And I have an answer to that. We do it in my case. We put on the case that they are factually innocent now. And that's one of the things I want the justice
to have the opportunity to present your case.
It's the American concept. It's a very American rule. We call it your day in court. That's what we call it. Your day in court.
Your day in court.
And they never got that in that case.
And you want to have their day in court.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. And that is the appeal court. It's in San Francisco.
Yes.
And you did say it earlier, it's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal in San Francisco. So when you're going down there on the 14th, my question would be, do you also bring your clients with you, or just you there to present the case on the hearings, or how will it work?
Well, first of all, courts in America are public. That's the first thing. So anybody can go.
Anybody can go.
I will tell you.
Go
yes,
media?
You may go. Okay. I will tell you though, they have certain rules about. First of all, there aren't that many seats. It's not like a gigantic room, and I don't know how many seats are. There are going to be a lot of people there, so it's just sort of hit and miss. You get there, you get a seat. Media is a different issue. You can.
We can't ask.
You can be there and just listen like any citizen, but you can't film.
Yeah.
They're not going to let you film.
Yeah, we already asked.
Yeah, and you have to. What'll happen is there's going to be 3 new judges who will look at this. 3 new judges, and those judges are higher. It's a higher court, and if they agree. They can, with me, they can reverse it, which means undo it, and send it back down, send it back to Sacramento, and let us have that day in court. So that's what we're asking for.
So it's, say if the 3 new judges agree and they send the case back, would the 3 defendants that you represent also risk their case that perhaps?
Oh, then we go back and do it. Then we can present our case to a civil jury.
Okay.
That's what it means.
Okay.
And we can prove factual innocence at long last.
At long last, waiting for.
Yeah, finally.
So when you in San Francisco on the 14th, what will be your main argument for the appeal?
That the determination of factual innocence should be made in this case. And let us go to trial to show.
And that pretty much what you're asking for.
That's what we're asking for.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
what I told the judges, I get it. You got to show you're innocent. I don't mind that. That's a fair requirement. Let us prove it. Okay? That's our burden of proof. Let us do it.
Well, Mr. Frank, let's take a little break, and when we come back, I'd like to ask you a few more questions about your appeal case.
Very well.
And perhaps we'll touch a little bit about the history of the original case. So get our audience, and especially the Hmong folks who are watching, not just in the United States, but all over the world, also understand where we come from and why the lawsuit and the appeal case is now in San Francisco, and perhaps what's the expect of the outcome. So we'll be right back. Mình xin tin trả lời rong xuyên đầu cuối cho này tất cả lần cho tu attorney và law file họ lawsuit law một số chế bê tu đời cho và trong đề thơ rồi đầu trong hiện tu vấn thi lâu xong ở phá xa đời và bê tàu hành bê ta đó nên đời tất cả là người thải rong gì. So Mr. Frank, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit more about the appeal hearing court on the 14th of May in San Francisco. Can you tell us a little bit whether or not if the public can be there, and where the address, and perhaps if they wanted to have the chance to sit in a courtroom?
The public is allowed to come to any court in USA. It's 95 7th Street, which is Mission and 7th. There's parking around there. It's not so easy to find parking. Okay. The only thing I would tell you is that there are only so many seats there. And when they're full, they're full. So the court...
Do they need a call first? Or?
No, they just show up.
They show up?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also want to tell everyone that even if you can't get in, you could be there. And just being there is good. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be there. We're going to have our oral argument, which won't actually last that long. We might have 15 minutes or 20 minutes per side.
Okay.
So it's not like an all-day thing. You got to get there in the morning, and I don't know.
What time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
And I don't know exactly when our case will be called. We're going to be on the list. They often have something in front of me. We'll see. Okay.
Sure. So
please come.
Please come. So 95 7th Street in San Francisco between Mission.
It's basically on 7th and Mission.
On 7th and
yes.
Mission. Okay. At 9 o'clock. So, well,
courtroom 3.
Courtroom number 3.
Courtroom number 3. Yes.
Okay. When you filed the lawsuit, with the appeal in San Francisco. Did you hear any response from the government? Anything from the other side about your lawsuit?
The way the procedure works on appeal, we file a brief first, and then they file a respondent's brief. And in their respondent's brief, what they said was basically what they had told the first court, which is that the dismissal of the criminal case did not show factual innocence. That's what they basically argued again. It's the same thing. They're saying, look, they didn't really say you're guilty, you just didn't prove you're innocent. And therefore, you can't sue us. That's basically. And
they hope that will be the end of it.
Yes.
And it's not, according to
I hope it's not. I might add, we're in the U.S. Court of Appeals Ninth Circuit. The next court is the U.S. Supreme Court.
So this is almost the highest of the Hyatt, the second highest court.
Second highest.
Second highest court.
Second highest. So the U.S. Supreme Court would be the next one.
Okay.
And
will you take it there if?
Oh yes.
You will.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. Well.
The U.S. Supreme Court, they only take, really important cases. They hardly take any. And I hope this would be one. Okay, I hope they would. I might add, if we win the case and it gets reversed, there's a really good, really high odd that the U.S. government would appeal it to the Supreme Court. So there's a couple ways it could get there.
Now, Mr. Frank, the other question I have at the remaining of our minutes is that files lawsuit on behalf of three plaintiffs, the three of the old defendant from the old case or original case. Not just, according to what I read, the whole thing is that it's not only has to do with the case itself, but also with Hmong that being, slaughtered, that being discriminated, being chased in Laos. That's why I started the first case and problem to start with. So in this case, how do you plan to argue, the Hmong who also still live in Laos in hidings or previously been slaughtered by the Laos government?
Part of it is the issue we have under our First Amendment, which is the right to seek redress, to petition the government for redress of grievances. So for example, if you go to the U.S. government and say, we have a problem in Laos, please help us. You should never be retaliated against or attacked for having asked. Our government can tell you, no, too bad, but they can't do something against you. And one of my claims is that they actually did, once they learned that the Hmong people were interested in solving things in Laos, it's like they set this whole thing up.
That's right.
It's an act, to me, of retaliation. And as I said earlier, the bigger problem that's way bigger than this case are the ongoing atrocities in Laos. And what I'm a little bit amazed about is, first, that that's going on. I was quite shocked to learn that, okay? And I want to tell you, most Americans, they don't know about it. They don't know about Hmong. Laos is not a real famous country. And so a lot of Americans, if you ask them where is Laos, they probably wouldn't even know where it is. And the concept that there's like open killing of people, that's kind of, in today's world, that's a really weird idea. Normally, you would hope like some movie stars would get involved, somebody, like someone like Angelina Jolie ought to get involved in this, or George Clooney or somebody. But when I heard about it, I was amazed that it's going on, that it is legal in Laos to kill a Hmong person. I find that rather shocking. And that the worst part is that nobody's doing anything about it. The UN, they've been asked to help, but they're not doing anything. The USA has.
They acknowledged, but they didn't take any action.
To me, this should be declared like an emergency. And this is, this should not be, we're going to study it. I mean, when someone's about to be killed, you don't do a report. You go save them. They need to be saved. Right. So what I think is, I wanted to show that our case that we're doing right now about the criminal case is an example where a lawsuit can sometimes bring government action. So even you can protest, you can write letters, you can march in the street. All those are good. I want to encourage people to do everything in a peaceful and legal way. A lawsuit is another peaceful and legal way to effect change. And what can happen, by way of example, we have a very odd and old federal law. It's called the Alien Tort Claims Act. And it was written in like 1789 or somewhere way back there as a law against piracy. But it applies to this scenario where if a mother of a daughter or a son who was murdered in Laos could bring a lawsuit in federal court in USA. For against the Laotian government officials.
I see.
For doing that murder. And I'm sure a mother somewhere in the jungles of Laos would not have the slightest idea she would have that power.
They wouldn't.
She does. I want to tell that mom, call me, because I want to do that case. And
I see.
That case, I need one mom, okay? I don't need 10,000 moms. I need one mom who lost a kid.
Or a dad.
Or a dad. Or both.
Or both.
Better yet, both. What I would like to do is file a lawsuit on their behalf and apply for something called an injunction. An injunction is a stop order. You know, you've heard the phrase restraining order. It's a stop order. I would like to apply for an injunction from a federal court judge to the Laotian government officials saying, stop killing Hmong people now. And if they didn't do it, we could extradite them on a contempt. And it would be a very interesting case. So I just want to point out, sometimes law cases can create or give the force that you need when government is not acting to make them act.
We know almost for a fact that there is no way a mom or a dad in Laos would do that, even though if they have the case, will be like killing themselves or suicidal to file a lawsuit in the United States against their own government, a communist government. But that even with that, you said that even with that they could still do it if they choose to.
If they choose to, somehow there would need to be protection of whoever does that. They would need that protection. And I think all that could be even dealt with by court order. But I think you would have to get that mom out of Laos.
Sure. I don't know. What about mom and dad that now in the United States and have such a situation apply to them in Laos?
Okay.
Because Hmong family, there are many Hmongs and Laotian family that live in the United States still have family, kinship, siblings, son and daughters in Laos.
When I did the funeral case I was telling you about, I learned a little bit about the Hmong family concept and the clan concept. Sure. And there's a lot of people who are cousins who really aren't cousins, blood cousins, right. But they look upon themselves. Sure. And in order to bring the case here, I think you got to be a mom or a dad. Okay, like a direct mom or dad, not cousin, aunt, uncle, whatever. They would need to be brave to do that case.
Okay.
That's what they need to be.
As an attorney, let me ask you, my last question would be, given the videographic picture that we received over the year from Laos, of the Laos government killing Hmong in such a way, that unimaginable way, will the Hmong in the United States as an organization or a group can file a lawsuit in federal court against the Lao government? Can they do that?
I'll tell you what, here's the problem with that. The problem with that are the Hmong. And I'll tell you what it is, because I know, because I tried. And I had some good help, even with the help of my clients, to approach the Hmong committees. They're very well organized, and they have committees for all this. I want you to know, I spoke with them. I made presentations to them. I made requests to them. I tried to get that going through them. I couldn't make it happen. I couldn't get any sort of, nobody here could really make it happen. And I figured it out. You know, what makes this case happen is I don't have a committee on it. I don't have a Hmong organization. I got the 3 people
I see.
who were charged with the crime. They signed an attorney-client agreement with me. I don't need a government. I don't need
Committee.
a committee. I need people who have what we call standing to sue. And that's a mom or a dad. If I get a mom or a dad comes to me and says, let's do it, we can do it. I would like, what the Hmong people here could do would be to help find those people. And then, if such a case did get filed, I want any Hmong person in law school to call me, because I'm going to need some help. I will definitely need some help on it.
Of course. And lastly, Mr. Frank, it's a pleasure to talk to you today, and thank you for spending your time with us. But is there anything else that you would like to say directly to the Hmong community as an attorney representing 3 of the plaintiffs filed lawsuit against the United States government and the ATF agent and his supervisor?
I want to share a concept that sometimes if you file a law case and you lose, you still can win. Something can happen from it, even if you don't. Like so far, we lost this case, I'm sorry to tell you, and we're appealing it to get it back to court. But let's suppose we lose again. And let's suppose I go to the U.S. Supreme Court and we lose again. Does news of that get out? Do I get a mom? Do I get a dad? Do we file that next case? I mean, I look at the lawsuit path as one that's not about did the judge agree. It can be past that. And I hope that the Hmong people can see it as, okay, we can march in the street, we can collect ourselves together. I know the Hmong are quite good at collecting together. I've been very amazed to see that. Better than most people on earth. I mean, it's like, wow, you know, they can do it. I know in my funeral case, they could go to 20,000 people and collect $2 each in a matter of a week. Sure. And it was ready to go. And I would be like, wow, how did you do that? And they just had everyone going everywhere. Everyone knew where to go. So if we could bring all that organizational talent forward and to become helpers and workers on a big case like that, it can be done.
I did say my last question, but there are a few things that come to my mind. I'd like to ask you this: what in it for you that you are filing the helping filing the case? What's in it for you?
First of all, I'm a private lawyer, so I'm not a government lawyer. I have my own law office, and it's like owning any business, like owning a restaurant or anything. I need customers, I need cases. If I win and I get damages, okay, and the plaintiffs collect, I get a piece of that, okay? Sure. So I want to say there's, sorry, but I'm a lawyer, this is what we lawyers do. We are in it for the money. I don't want to be embarrassed by that.
Sure.
But I'm also interested in aligning myself with the Hmong people. And I find it to be amazing that the UN isn't on this, that the USA isn't on it, that Europe isn't on it. Somebody ought to be on this and doing something. And I have a general interest in becoming some type of ambassador for the Hmong people to start approaching these people. And I'll tell you, I have some ideas on how to do it. And I think it needs to be done. Somebody needs to start talking to other governments to get them involved and get people organized, not just Hmong people organized, but Western government people organized. And even other Asian states, like if you got China on the Hmong side, well, that would be huge. Getting China to say, this is wrong. And as I understand, China does sympathize with the Hmong. And they don't like what's going on down there. They don't want to do anything on it, maybe. They're not going to send armed forces to Laos. We're not there yet. But this is what I'm saying, is we should be going to every government and saying, please help us. And I would like to be doing that.
I see. With that said, Mr. Frank, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. ยงเชียที่ต่อใจในเรากงจะไปมง entertainment hour ในช่องมุขติที่เปลี่ยนโชว์เนาะไปยังมัวจะเกเราเด็กจะรับพูดในส่วนสุด